Well, biodynamic agriculture is really caring for the life forces much more consciously. There's organic farming, which is really copying nature, and that is very sound because nature is very wise. But I think in biodynamics, we're looking behind what nature is actually doing and seeing the laws of life in a much clearer way. And we're working in the same direction as nature is working, but we're taking it further. It's a deeper understanding of the laws of life and working with those much more consciously.
To understand how biodynamic is different and why it is much more powerful than organic, you have to come up with the understanding of the very broad system, intangible, which leads life to Earth. When you are in biodynamic, you use some biodynamic treatments, which are tiny quantities, at most 100 grams by hectare, and in many cases 4, 5 grams or 2 grams. People say it's impossible, it has no action. You act at an intangible level, energetical level, and you are stimulating some processes which will end up with more life of bacteria, microbes in the soil, or an intensification of what is photosynthesis.
Rudolf Steiner was an Austrian philosopher. He was born in 1861. Steiner started biodynamics in answer to a request from a number of farmers who were very concerned, these were Central European farmers, who were very concerned about the deterioration in their crops, in health of livestock and so on. And they said to Steiner, well, you have an insight into these workings of nature, can't you help us and tell us what we can do which will bring health back into our livestock and our farming processes? And so he gave this course of lectures on a big estate of Kobowitz near Breslau in Lower Austria in 1924 in answer to this request by this group of farmers. So it came out of a need from the time.
The difference between organising a meal in a biodynamic fashion is, first of all, you get your biodynamic produce. That involves using something of the root, the leaf, the stem, and the fruit, which includes the cereal grains, in the meal, and you have automatically a really balanced meal. And the cooking of it just means dynamizing the food, looking at food in a completely different way.
This is a process which leads to the understanding of a taste. When you like something in a wine, it's something very intangible which is there in your glass. Every hectare in the world has an originality to offer for a specific plant. It can be tea, it can be coffee, it can be chocolate, it can be an oyster, it can be honey, it can be milk, etc. And what I find sad is the fact that people don't understand it, because when it is clearly explained, you are so deeply impressed by this system that you do not tell yourself, what could I do against disease? You tell yourself, this is great, let's use this system. And this is the first step towards the understanding of biodynamic.
Biodynamics is about being very sensitive to the life processes and the life forces that are flowing through the plants and the microorganisms in the soil. Really finding a way of bringing all that life to a sort of peak of activity, but a comfortable peak, a sort of harmonious hum. Biodynamics gives you an understanding of the life processes instead of working with life processes by accident because they're there, you're actually engaging with those processes consciously.
It has to start with the discovery of an extraordinary system, so well organized, which you can use for free. Nature is a gift. Everything is a process of giving, and we can use this. And this leads to fabulous people, because when you eat these things, you change yourself. Biodynamic is really the best possible acupuncture for the earth. It is reinforcing the life for the earth in a specific spot, tiny spot, but it has effect in a much, much broader way on all the body of the earth.
Steadfast imagination can achieve all things. And what does this mean? It means to say that we have to create a picture. We are creative beings. We have to create a picture of what we want to bring about. And we have to have a picture of a healthy environment, of a healthy world. And if we work with that, and if we water that plant, that imagination every day for years, gradually and gradually and gradually, that creative force which we formed at a higher level will gradually sink down, and it will become manifest in front of you.
Something I'm interested in, but I'm very sceptical as to how it's going to work with being labour intensive or not.
I'm very interested in it, particularly it works very closely with natural cycles, which is something that I'm very keen on.
I'm gonna see this after this growing season, if it's growing better by the moon, planted by the moon, transplanted by the moon and held by the moon.
I'm principal of the Biodynamic Education Centre, and I run training courses for farmers and gardeners, teaching them biodynamic methods which they can use on their sites. In this box we've stored the set of compost preparations plus our horn manure. So we've got here yarrow, which is BD502, chamomile, BD503, stinging nettle, which is BD504, oak bark, BD505, dandelion, BD506, and 2 bottles of the valerian preparation, also known as BD507. Each of these preparations from BD502, 3, 4, 5, 6 and also BD507 is referred to as a set of compost preparations. In biodynamics we use them whenever we're breaking down organic matter and driving that into humus formation. Very valuable preparations for that process. We've put some in our compost that we made, and we also put them into the manure concentrate, and another use for them was to put them into a liquid manure. So the first one is the yarrow preparation, known as BD502. When we use this preparation, we enable the planetary forces that come from Venus to be entering into the earthly realm. Yarrow mediating planetary forces which come from Venus. So whenever this preparation is used, we've found there's a complete balance in trace minerals, and the plant is able to attract from a wide distance all that it needs in trace minerals, the lead, copper, magnesium. The plant is able to draw this into its living processes. So yarrow brings about a good balance in trace minerals. Next preparation is chamomile. Chamomile works through the planetary influences of Mercury. Chamomile controls nitrogen, so it stops the putrefacients of the proteins in a breakdown process. Chamomile helps the digestive processes in the compost heap, gives the environment for beneficial bacteria, and holds and stabilises the nitrogen within the breakdown process. Very valuable preparation. This is BD504, made from stinging nettle plants. Stinging nettle helps support iron radiations in the soil and also in the plant, It's a general strengthening tonic for the plant and improves the porosity of the soil. So this is very good. Stinging nettle, known as the jack of all trades, it's such a valuable herb. And so when we use stinging nettle, we really support the health and vitality of the plant. The next preparation I want to look at is oak bark. This is very finely ground bark of an oak tree. When this preparation is used, it enables the plant to combat harmful diseases, harmful plant diseases. It also mediates excess lunar forces. So whenever the moon forces are too strong, it provides strength to the plant, enables it to combat any plant diseases. It's very high in calcium. It's working with calcium processes. And we found that when it's used regularly, it'll give you a complete balance of soil pH. And this is the oak bark preparation. The next one is the dandelion. Dandelion is BD506. Dandelion works through the planet influence of Jupiter, one of the outer planets. It also enables the plant to create the right environment that it needs for its health. The plant and the soil react in a very close relationship, and dandelion allows the plant to create the right environment for healthy growth. It's also related to the fullness, the uprightness and the strength of the plant, and works through silica processes. This is the dandelion preparation made from dandelion flowers. And then the last preparation is the valerian. And this is made from valerian flowers which have been steeped in rainwater and then left in the sun to create a beautiful liquid valerian. This preparation is stirred for 20 minutes, biodynamically stirred for 20 minutes, and then put over the top of the compost heap or poured into the liquid manure or used in the manure concentrate. Valerian is a very powerful preparation. It's also known as the warmth giver. So it's driving the Saturn influences to Earth, helping to mediate those. Also, when valerian is used regularly, it activates the phosphate activating enzymes within the soil, so it brings phosphorus to the plant. And the valerian preparation will enable phosphorus to come into the plant realm. So warmth giver and working with phosphorus. So the preparations, yarrow, chamomile, nettle, oak bark, dandelion and valerian are all known as the set of compost preparations. They're all used together whenever we break down organic matter. So we'll put these preparations away in a nice cool place, cool environment where we can retain them in their good condition that they are now, and they're ready to use when we next make our compost heap, or we make a manure concentrate, or we're working with our liquid teas. There's three aspects to stirring. The first one is that you get a good rhythm of vortex to chaos every 20 seconds. The next important thing is to make the vortex. And the third is the reversal of the vortex into chaos. Today we're stirring using an enamel bucket. We could also have used a stainless steel bucket, copper container or a ceramic container. We don't use electricity to heat the water because this will change the molecular structure of the water. We can use any good quality water, spring water, rainwater or river water. So Nicole, could you check whether that's up to the tepid blood temperature?
Yes, really nice and warm.
Nice and warm?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you pour that in, heating it makes it more viscous and therefore more receptive to the life forces that are in the preparations. So when you first start practicing it, and it's just a gentle wrist action, count that time, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Count the seconds so you learn that rhythm. If I make a vortex and I stay in the centre of the water, okay, I've made a vortex here and it's down to the bottom, but can you see how the water's got a shoulder? See how it's got a shoulder on the side? and the vortex is only going into the middle. We want to avoid that, and we want to make the whole water a vortex, and I achieve that by keeping my hand on the outside of the pail. So the whole time that I'm moving my hand down, I'm actually touching the sides of this bucket. And can you see now that the whole water has become the vortex, not just the centre? So always keep your hand to the outside. Once we've made the vortex, and we're going to take between 15 to 20 seconds to make the vortex, we reverse it straight away, and we reverse it and push that water into chaos. And that chaos has a particular sound, so you need to listen for that. It's not a gentle reversing, so use as much energy to reverse the water as you use to create the vortex. I'll be counting, so I get the rhythm of about between 15 and 20 seconds, but as soon as I come down to the bottom of the pail, I'll reverse it into chaos. So we'll start now. Counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And when I reversed into chaos, my hand stayed in the centre. Get the water running back with me, then bring your hand out to the top and start moving down into the vortex again. You reversed it, Bill, coming from the outside. Stay in the middle. You made a really nice vortex. Stay in the middle when you reverse it back the other way. Now stay in the centre and make a really small circle in the centre with as much effort as you did to make the vortex. Get it all running back with you and then come back out. That's it. And then once you've got that rhythm, start counting. Well done.
Looks like you're stirring it for the hour, Bill.
When you reverse it, Nicole, stay in the centre and you don't get that splash. So make your vortex and reverse it from staying in the middle, very tight hand movement in the middle, but stay right in the centre. Keep a very small circle. You're coming out to a bigger circle, and then right back out to the top.
Do I start counting when I'm back at the top, or start?
Yeah, as soon as you reverse it.
That's when you start.
That's
counting.
your start. See if you can see the bottom. That's it. Now very tight hand action. That's it. Nearly. Stay in the middle and keep that small circle running the other way. The aim of biodynamic practice is to revitalise the soil, and it makes it open and receptive to all the forces of the cosmos. The moon, the planets and the constellations. Working with the biodynamic preparations enlivens the soil and creates this life on Earth. One of the pioneering biodynamic practitioners, Maria Thun, for 35 years planted and observed the results, and found that the time that she puts the seed in the ground with an annual plant, referencing it to the moon and lunar influences, has a strong influence on how that plant develops. Will it develop a stronger root system? Will it develop more leaves? Would it go to flower, or would it go to fruit and seed? I have 2 biodynamic planting calendars with me today, although there are several others available. The first one is published by Maria Thun. She's a German lady who did the original research and from which the calendars are based. For over 35 years, she's been a scientist in her own right, experimenting and observing results of planting at different times. So I want to start with the basis of the biodynamic planting calendar, and it's based on the constellations of the zodiac. The biodynamic planting calendar is based on the sidereal zodiac. So this is the actual constellations of the zodiac as they physically appear in the sky.
What does sidereal mean?
Sidereal, according to the stars.
Okay.
So if we start now taking the 360 degrees, we find that some of them are 30, some of them are 28, some are 25, some are 38. But this is approximately the size of the constellation as it physically appears. Biodynamics is working with what's actually appearing in the sky, the star patterns, their size that are actually there. It's a science based on the observation of what's happening. It's based in astronomy. Maria Thun found over all her experimentation that the time that she put the seed in the ground would affect how the plant developed. The relationship between the development of the plant and the timing that she chose was where the moon was standing in front of these constellations of the zodiac. The moon acts rather like a lens in the sky, and it focuses to Earth the influences of the constellation in front of which it is standing. What I'm going to show you now is how the sidereal rhythm is represented on the Biodynamic planting calendar, and they're represented on both calendars. Maria Thun's calendar has here the constellations, and this is the glyph for all the 12 constellations of the zodiac. Brian Keats' calendar is giving you exactly the same information, but the glyphs are appearing here. And if we look at Maria Thun's calendar, we've got it here. The ram, the bull, the twins, the crab, the lion. So what I want to do with you now is to look at the calendar, what it represents, and then relate that back to some of the practical activities you might do in the garden. So to do that, we need to understand what is the Biodynamic planting calendar, its practical application in the garden, and how you're going to work with this. On Maria Thun's calendar, she's written the information here. Fruit for a fire day, root for an earth day, flower for an air day, and if we look down, we've got the blue leaf for a water sign. So the information is in this calendar, written in information down on this column. On this calendar, it's giving as a graphic representation. The moon acts like a lens in the sky, bringing the different influences to Earth: root, flower, leaf, fruit. And this is the basis of Maria's calendar. So when she puts a seed in the ground and develops a stronger root system, she finds the moon is always in an earth sign. She puts the seed in the ground and the development of leaf is stronger on the plant than at any other time. The moon is always in front of a water sign. She puts the seed in the ground and it develops more flowers. She's found the moon was always in front of an air sign. And if she planted the seed in the ground when the moon was in front of a fire sign, it developed a stronger fruit and seeding formation. Pretty clear about reading the glyphs on the calendar, what it's representing, and planting for root development for a plant that wants root development on an earth day, plant that you'd like to get a better flower development on an air day, leaf formation on a water day, and fruiting and seeding on a fire day. If we have a look at this, we can see that there's time frames next to each of these changes in the constellations. So we've got, this is 24-hour clock, we've got 9:40, 20 to 10 in the morning, 18:01, 1 minute past 6 in the evening, 22:54. These times indicate when the moon moves into a new constellation of the zodiac. So we see that the constellations of the zodiac change. And if you have a look at it, some days we've got 3 days here that are root signs, 3 days that are flower. We've got water leaf development for 4 days, but we've only got 3 days for fruit, 3 days again for root development, 3 days for flower. So the glyphs and the time frame for planting each of the seeds are not exactly regular each time. So say I'm putting a seed in the ground now and I'm wanting the flower development on my plant, and I'm thinking, well look, I've got from 10 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday all the way through till 20 to 11 at night on the Thursday. It would be far more beneficial to plant early in the morning on the Tuesday and have that 3-day period where the seed is under the influence of the air sign than it would be, say, to plant Thursday afternoon. Why aren't all the glyphs exactly the same size?
Because of the different angles the zodiac's constellation is in. With the one have 80 degrees and some have 42 or 48 degrees.
Because the constellations are physically bigger. Some constellations in the sky are very big, and some constellations are quite small.
How much of a difference does it actually make when you sow according to the calendar? Because I say I'm an organic gardener, and I feed the soil, and I try to be as in touch with, natural forces as I can. But how much of a difference is there? Because it is a bit more effort to sow according to the calendar. You've got to be much more organised. I'm just quite curious about how much difference there is.
We've found quite pronounced results using the biodynamic planting calendar, and what she found when she planted carrots, because at the top were planted when the moon was in front of an earth sign, but the carrots down the bottom were sown when the moon was in front of a water sign.
And this is all in plots that have been given the same treatments, and it's all done.
Yeah. All very recorded scientific experiments. So I think if you were to question the biodynamic calendar and say, well, what kind of yield difference would I get if I planted in an earth sign for a root development, or if I planted in an air sign for a flower development, and have that question, it's a very good question to have. Work on one site with one plot and work with it from the biodynamic garden. Nicole, I think you've done some questioning with that, haven't you? You've had your own thoughts on doing this?
Yeah, I planted or I sown some seeds, some tomato seeds on a fruit day, and I've sown some tomato seeds on a root day, and I'm looking forward to the result. I've got 2 trays of tomato martina, which are both sown by biodynamic seeds. This one is sown on the 21st of March, which was a fruit day. That means that the moon is influencing the fruit development. This one is sown 2 days later on a root day. That means that the moon is influencing the root development. And on the 23rd of March. The ones sown on a fruit day, they sprouted, germinated within 5 days. And the ones sown on the root day, they germinated within 8 days. But they're both kept in the hot bay next to each other. That means they've grown under the same conditions. I would say 1 to 2 centimeters difference in the growth, in the height of the growth. These are the tomatoes I've sown back in March for my experiments, the tomato martina. These 2 here I've sown on the 21st of March, where the moon was in front of a fire sign. These 2 plants here are sown 2 days later on the 23rd of March, when the moon was in front of an earth sign. As you can see here, we've got much more fruit on the tomatoes sown on a fruit day, and also the fruit development is much more developed. You can see here ripe tomatoes already, and here there are less tomatoes and they're still green. Another difference between the tomatoes is the height of the tomatoes. As you can see here, it's about 10 to 15 centimeters difference between the plants. So I proved for myself that growing biodynamically works.
Compost should be on a north-south axis, and this fence line is running almost north-south. So if we aligned it close to this fence, that would be an ideal site. One consideration would be these trees, how close to go. A poplar and an oak tree will invade the compost. Their feeder roots will come through and find the compost, so we need a decent amount of distance between us. And I think if we come to about here as the edge of the compost, we've got about 5 metres, and that should do it.
We collect all the waste from the garden into this big heap here. We also collect anything that's woody, so we shred. So we've got this heap here and we shred it into wood chip.
This is carbon material, and it's always the limiting factor when you make a compost is how much carbon you can get. We can use straw, and we'll also use quite a bit of this. The ratio is 70% to 30%, so we're looking for 70% carbon and only 30% nitrogen. So the cow manure is nitrogen, this is carbon, so we need quite a lot of this, and we've got a couple of bales of straw that can build the carbon, so this is ideal. Another ingredient that's really important is 10% soil. We'll get 2 wheelbarrows of this soil. We'll pick up at least a dozen wheelbarrows of the carbon material. We'll gather 2 good handfuls of this, 2 good armloads that will create the aeration tunnel. So this material is all nitrogenous. It's fiery, it's hot, and it provides heat for the compost. Most composts go wrong when you put too much nitrogen in it. So if you haven't got the carbon to hold the heat back down, that's when it starts getting too hot. You get that white mould when you've got excess heat. So this is great, but we need to balance that with our carbon material.
Will the carbon-rich material not lock up the nitrogen? Because if a wood chipper is very, very rich in carbon, will it not starve will it not remove all the nitrogen out of the cow manure without things rotting down?
If that was a pile of sawdust, we'd have to be very careful how much we used, but it's not. It's actually shredded branches, so that's not. The carbon-nitrogen ratio is much lower. We can start marking out the site. We need to chip the grass so this compost has soil contact. So we're going to chip all the grass off where we're building the compost. Just get to the base of the grass. If you watch this, and I'll show you how to do it. We're just coming in and chipping it off. If we do it too much like this, we could get a hard pan and stop the water going in, so we're just chipping it.
Why don't we just leave the grass underneath the compost heap as opposed to digging it off?
The plant will create a rhizosphere with the biology that works symbiotically with it. So does the compost. The compost has got a range of bacteria and fungi that live in relationship with it and help that breakdown. These fungi and bacteria will now easily penetrate the soil. So it's almost like the compost creates a rhizosphere.
You build it in the same place again?
Build it in the same place, and each time the compost gets better and better because the microorganisms in the soil readily come up into the new heap. We go for about 1.5 meters in width and 1.5 meters in height. So we'll gather this material. We've gathered this specifically to make an air tunnel out of. But when you gather it up, hold it together and just lay it down in its core. Don't try and spread it out at all. We could have done it with tiles of straw, sandwiches of straw put on side. We'll get the cow manure, some carbon, and about 10% of soil going through the heap as we build it. 2 really good ingredients that we can use as we're building it is clay and lime. This is solid clay, which we've made into a slurry. The clay together with humus form a very solid bond, and that gives the humus something to grab onto. So clay is a really good ingredient to put into a compost. And the other ingredient I've got here is hydrated lime or slake lime. Will help to hold the alkalinity in the compost and stop the nitrogen from escaping. When we add this to the compost, you have to watch that you don't breathe this in. So someone might say lime, and we all pull back and lightly layer it in, and the person on the hose waters that in. You don't want to breathe this in. So we'll just take a bit of care when we add the lime. When we're building the compost, we try and keep that flat base, and that gives us a really good shape. If we start just adding to the middle, it'll soon round itself off, and then it won't hold all the material. So always keeping a fairly flat base. And we'll also now start watering. And we're going to add as much water as this compost will take. You can't overwater a compost when you build it because any excess water will filter through the soil. 90% of composts are built without enough water, and that's why they go dry, and that's why they need turning. Try and avoid layers and really water it really well, and just the whole time we're building it, you need to be doing that. Another layer of wood chips would do, and then a little bit of soil on top of it. And the soil's good to add that solid earthly element to the compost. It's not for biological life, it's just to hold it down and give it an earthly element. Once you've got the manure everywhere, we'll put a layer of carbon and then we'll add our lime, because our lime shouldn't touch the manure. You just need to stand back, and Katie, you follow me with this, with the hose. So just very lightly. You have to be careful you don't have any thick layers of one material. Thin layers are fine, but the way I like to do it is to get a fork and just gently mix it through. And another thing that's important as we make it is the shape of the heap. When the heap decomposes, it'll go down to 1/2 to 2/3 of what we start with. So as it decomposes, you want it to fall into itself. So if you've got this gentle slope on the side, it will easily do that.
Yeah.
Falling down and you don't lose anything. So we've done that. See what a nice shape it is, and we've still maintained our flat top as we build it up. So one more layer of green and also the carbon. We'll get more of that on. With the fork, we're mixing it in and we're keeping a good shape. And we're packing it down so that it's not too light and fluffy. If it's too light and fluffy, there's too much air and it will heat up too much. What we need to look for now is how much air, and a really good test is just to drive the fork in. So it goes in very easily. So there's good airflow, and if you look, you can almost shake the heap. And another way to do it is to put your boot on it and see how it bounces back. It's a bit spongy. So there's enough airflow through that, and I think we did a very good job. Can you put a thermometer in this, and after the next 2 or 3 days it will start heating up. Check that temperature range. Goes to 50 but not over 65.
What would we need to do if it did go over?
If you did, you'd have to open it and turn the compost and put in some more carbon and add some more water. 6 weeks, check the compost. We take the straw out from the outside, and you're not just looking at the compost, you're getting your fork in and you're checking inside the compost. No sign of too much heat, which is that white mould, and that you've got enough moisture. And an even breakdown of materials. There's no signs of cow manure or grass. Then the next time is 3.5 months later. At 5 months, it will transform from broken down organic matter into humus. And that's what we're looking for with a biodynamic compost. So what we've got here is the biodynamic preparations. Of these preparations, we put 6 into the compost. So we've got some ceramic containers here. So this one is yarrow, and that's known as BD502. Chamomile, BD503, made out of chamomile flowers. BD504 is nettle, the stinging nettle plant. 505 is oak bark. The last solid one is dandelion, and that's known as BD506. Each of these 5 preparations is wrapped in good garden soil or compost and put into the compost. So I've gathered a bucket of nice garden soil. So we'll get a small handful, and we're going to put each of the preparations into that soil and wrap it up in a ball. Add a little bit of water just to stick it together. So holding your hand a little bit closed.
What have I got there then?
You've got 502 yarrow. So carefully rolling it into that ball of soil until it's a nice.
Not mixed into.
No, just roll it in. You've got 503 chamomile. So carefully roll it into, holding it down and wrapping it. If you need a bit more soil, grab it. 504 stinging nettle. So once you've got a ball, put it on the board and it's ready to go into the compost. 502, 503, 504, 505, 506.
What do all these do though when you put them in the compost?
They guide the breakdown in the biological process. We've got raw organic material here, and we need to guide that transformation into humus. And it's been found that when these preparations are used, the capacity of the compost to form humus is greatly increased. And we've warmed this water. It's very nice quality rainwater. We've warmed it to its tepid, so it's just blood temperature. We put the valerian into this water, and I'm going to stir it for 20 minutes. And at the end of 20 minutes, it's ready to put onto the compost.
Why do you have to stir it for 20 minutes?
To enliven it. So it's no longer just valerian and water. Valerian's been bonded onto the particles of water, and the whole lot has become the valerian. So you're taking it into the living realm, not just the realm of water and material. And this vortex stirring brings it into the life realm. We're going to put the preparations into the compost, and we need to make a hole to put them in. pushing a hole down about 45-degree angle. And so we're going into the core of the compost. So we'll each get a preparation. We'll put a little bit of garden soil into the hole, put the preparation in, and then pack soil out so there's no air tunnel. And pack soil into the hole, and then the compost around it. The valerian that was stirred for 20 minutes is going into the last hole here. So about a third of the valerian being poured into the hole. Pack some soil in. That's it, close up the hole. And then the rest of the valerian is sprayed over the outside of the heap, and it forms like a seal, like a skin. And then it stops any nutrients leaving the compost and contains everything into the heap. So we'll skin the whole compost. And I've just got a little brush to apply the valerian with. So we'll shake it over the whole heap. So we'll thatch it. When we pick up the tiles of straw, don't let them break apart. You want them held together. And we put them downwards, and each section of straw right close up next to the other one with no air. And we'll go right around the base of the heap until it's fully covered. Okay, now the next layer, exactly the same. This time just slightly overlap it and put it where the seal is, that's right. Slightly overlap it so the rain will run down off it. That's a really thick cover, and in summer a thatch like this will hold the moisture, and when you get wet weather it'll all shed itself off, so it's completely covered and it's completely sealed from the external weather. So this is all completely contained. So well done.
Now we're gonna have to remove some of the straw to get in the center of the compost heap.
Yeah, that's rotted really well.
So I'll stick the fork in and gonna look inside and check for enough moisture. Yeah,
I'm amazed.
Good, isn't it?
looks really good.
That's how I feel.
And I mean, for 6 weeks, it's really rotten down. And again, we have to check if there's some white mold in the compost.
Can't see any.
Oh, look, it's a worm. Must be rotten down well.
No, I think it looks great. I mean, it feels that it has enough moisture.
That's some good compost.
This is our compost that we made 6 months ago, and it's reduced quite a lot in size, almost half. And look, you get the worms in there. Look at the worms. Compost, which has formed a humus colloid, is the very best plant food. And there's no better plant food than humus. What we have here is a beautiful humus colloid. Humus will hold itself together, and it's like putty. It's got a beautiful silky feel. If I leave the compost for too long, it'll become that crumbly, friable compost. Bill, you had an example of that. And I just wanted to, if you could pour some into my hand, I wanted to show you a comparison between what is normally applied as compost and what we apply as biodynamic compost. There's no life in this, there's no earthworm activity, and it doesn't improve the structure of the soil. But if it was made, then you would add it because it's going to add organic matter, but it has no real value.
But isn't the difference because that's dry and that's wet?
No, it's in the structure of the actual compost. This is a humus colloid, which means it'll hold its own structure. This has lost its colloidal properties. Let's have a look then. If you got some water down there, just a small amount, not too much. Just pour, if you could help him, Nicole, just pour a little bit in slowly, and we'll now that's really wet. If you look at it like this, it's still, no matter how much I squeeze it together, it still won't hold any structure.
Okay.
But this one, the biodynamic compost, hold that together, and it won't fall apart. It's got its own structure.
Okay.
This is a colloid. It's holding its own structure. It's holding everything as a suspension within the material itself. So it's the actual structure of the compost which is as important as any other part. And the way to get the humus colloid is not to leave it for too long. So we've left this compost for 6 months. The average is 5 months. 6 months it's still looking good. And what's happened with this compost, it's a very uniform breakdown. It's broken down fully right through the whole of the compost heap. And it's all breaking down at the same time because we made it on that one day. It's just become almost like a worm farm. And that'll be enough. Nicole, if you could put a shovel load of compost on the garden, just over there, that'd be great. I like to put a good amount of compost onto the soil and then use crop rotations and green manures to hold the humus in the soil. So looking about an application of compost every 4 to 5 years. But when I do the compost, I do it well. The compost is not a mulch. It's too valuable to use as a mulch. We're going to lightly fork it into the top layer of the soil here. So this garden's ready to use now. First thing we're going to look at when we do a soil profile is the way that the fork moves into the soil. Well, I'm hitting some kind of a hard pan here.
Yeah, there's
It's
gravel down.
quite stony.
Yeah.
So this is topsoil on top of gravel. In a good soil profile, the fork would go fully into the soil. So what we do is come back to the first side where we first cut, and if you can put your foot on it, Katie, as I lift it right next to the fork, and we'll lift it and it will break open on the side that we haven't cut. There we go. That's a beautiful structured profile because the fine white feeder root hairs of the plants are going all the way through, making a very lovely soil. Also the way that the soil falls and it's held together in one homogeneous mix.
What's homogeneous mean?
All mixed together in one uniform soil profile. The opposite of a homogeneous mix would be layering of the soil. Layering showing you a lack of biological life, a lack of topsoil development. And also the size of the lumps that the soil breaks into. If it's big clods, then you've got a problem with the structure, or if it breaks into small powdered lumps. But this is breaking into very good sized clods. This has got a lovely homogeneous mix, so it's actually a very good profile. It's nicely aerated, good earthworm activity, which is always a good sign for soil structure because it means the earthworms can move through the profile of the soil. Good fine white feeder hair, root hair activity.
That's good.
So this is a good profile. If I give you all a sample of soil and we can take it off to the table, we're going to do a soil texture assessment. What I'd like you to do is take a small sample of the soil and remove any stones that might be in it. I'm going to add water very slowly, and you mix it with the soil and we'll make what's called a thread, which is about 3 millimetres thick, about the size of a good sized earthworm. And this will give us an indication to the texture of the soil. The texture is the amount of clay, sand and loam that is present in the soil. If we have a texture that's a clay loam, more towards the clay, it's nice and smooth. So is it smooth or is it gritty?
It's a bit gritty.
So probably more now towards the sandy loam.
Yeah.
Clay will glue it together, so more sand than clay.
Yep.
If you could bend a full ring, you would have more of a clay loam.
Okay.
But because it's breaking and it's got a lot of grittiness in it, it's telling us it's more a sandy loam. What I'd like to have a look at now is how compost improves soil. Compost improves sandy soil and clay soil. This is the biodynamic compost which we've made here on site. So if I give you each a small amount of the compost, and I want you to mix this really well with that soil sample you've got, and then we'll make another thread again and see what happens this time when we go to bend it. Have you noticed any change in the texture?
Feels really smooth.
Yeah.
It feels much smoother.
So it's immediate, much smoother.
Yeah.
So it's had an immediate effect.
Rolls a lot easier too.
And now this time, if we bend the soil again and see how hard or easily it breaks when we bend it.
Amazing. It does much less, I think.
It cracked, but it didn't break.
So what would we say about improving the texture?
It improves it, certainly, I think.
So compost has given a better texture to the soil, made it better to work with, and made it more flexible. We've put a bit of humus into our soil, and I'd like now to add a little bit of clay. Clay always improves the sandy soil. Once clay and humus works together, it makes the humus very stable in the soil profile. If you keep adding compost in the form of humus to a sandy soil, every year it only improves very slightly. But the moment that you add clay, it's like clay will glue the humus into the soil. So once you've mixed the clay, make a thread again. So this is the sandy loam, to which a small percentage of compost in the form of humus has been added, and now a very small amount of clay. Much more flexibility in the soil.
I've got one too.
And that's excellent. Really holding together now.
Yeah.
So it was the humus and the clay that together bind the sandy soil together. So it's these three components, the clay, the humus and the soil, that together make a very good soil texture, which improves the structure of the soil. So what we're going to do now is make the BD500, which we also call horn manure. And to make the BD500, we take cow horns and we're going to fill them with fresh cow manure. This cow manure has been collected from a biodynamic farm, and we're using cow manure from a lactating cow. So it's very fresh, and we'll get a small amount and put it into the horn, and then these sticks push it right down to the end because you don't want an air tunnel at the bottom of the horn. So just a small amount each time, and with your stick push it right in until you feel you've got it to the end, and then another small amount, push that in. A bit more and she's full. So it's pretty quick. Horn's done.
Lovely. I've never done anything like this in my life.
How do you know that these are cow horns?
It's the shape of the horn. A cow horn has a lovely vortex shape. See, if you turn it, it's got that twist.
Why is it important to have the vortex?
It's got a lovely helix shape, so it draws energy into itself. Because of the vortex shape. It's actually drawing all the energy right into the depth of the horn. And so the vortex shape is very important. And that's why it's always cow horns and not steer horns. They're straight, they don't have this lovely vortex curve. You can tell it's a cow horn because whenever she has a calf, she has a stress ring. So if you look on the end of the horn, she's had 1, 2, 3. This cow's had 4 calves.
Why do you have to use a horn? You not use anything?
Sometimes when we put down a horn pit, we experiment using different containers such as glass jars, wooden boxes, terracotta pots, but the manure never turns into BD500. The only container that works is the cow horn. You will find that the only way you can transform this manure is the cow horn. And the cow horn itself is keratin. It's made out of the similar material to your fingernails. So it's breathing, it's still allowing some airflow into it, and it's a natural material, and I think that's really important. And at the end of the 3 months, what we take out of the horns is this. This is horn manure, BD 500, and you can see it's completely transformed it. It's colloidal humus, totally transformed. It's no longer cow manure. So we can go and put these in our pit that we've dug, and then we'll cover it up, and the pit's now left till early spring. And we have made BD 500. Excellent. Okay, so this is about right for 12 horns. If we, Bill, if you just cut the side out, so we've got a good defined pit, and Katie, you take the soil out. We just go close to the subsoil, but we're not going to cut into the subsoil layer. We're burying the horns in the topsoil. Let's lay these into the pit, and with a little bit of soil around each one. Okay, so if you'd like to put yours in, yeah. So flat down. But this end, so the water doesn't come in.
Oh, okay.
That's it. So find how they go and lay them, so the other way around, Bill. That's it. Yep. Yep. So you've got to see how the horn lies and lay it down so that the water won't get into the inside of the horn. And Katie? Oh, perfect. So that's the 12 horns ready to cover up. So we'll fill in the earth. Okay, now the horns are set in the pit, let's cover it up. And Bill, if you start shoveling in the soil, lay it in carefully. Just carefully sprinkle it around each horn. We'll use these stakes to mark the site so that you always remember where it is. The maintenance of this over winter is to make sure that no plants grow on the site. So if weeds or grass start to grow, could you just weed them out and keep it bare soil for the winter months?
Right, what are we looking for on here then?
There shouldn't be any weeds on the surface.
There isn't. A little bit of grass. That's all right.
So it doesn't want to be too waterlogged or too dry, isn't it?
Yes.
That looks all right as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Yep. Very good.
Here we are, beginning of spring, early April, and time to dig up the cow horns. This has been well looked after with no weed growth or grass on top, so there's no root penetration into the horns, so this is good care. Okay, so let's dig the horns up and unearth them and see how this 500 is turned. Let's have a look at the horns. Fantastic. So if you'd like to take them all out. So what we need to do is knock the 500 out. It should just knock out easily.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh, here we go. Oh, yes.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the whole thing's coming out. Oh, look at this. Oh, you keep hitting it beautiful.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, well done. Yeah, that looks good. Look at that. It's got a really sweet smell now. It doesn't smell manure at all. If the 500 hasn't worked, it comes out with quite a strong manure smell, and then you know your horn hasn't turned. So
how do you mean turned?
It hasn't turned into 500. So this is really nice 500 actually. It doesn't have that deep dark colour of mature 500. So we're going to mould it now for a few minutes into a ball. Okay. We're going to put it in storage and we're going to leave it till autumn. And in autumn you can use this 500. Okay. And so this is for autumn and then next spring. This is enough for this 2 applications for this whole garden. We're going to store the BD 500 or the horn manure in a large unglazed ceramic crock. We can also store a smaller amount in one of these preparation jars. So I'll get the 500 out of the storage container and we'll put it in and we'll start stirring. So when I put it into the water, easing it into the water before we start stirring. So at the end of the stirring, it's not just BD 500 and water, it's far more than that. It's thoroughly energised water. So having it outside means that we're actually open to all the cosmic forces as well. Nicole, if you got the time, and if you could be our timekeeper and
Yes.
We'll go for an hour.
Yep.
We stir BD500 for an hour because it allows spiritual forces to penetrate into an earthly process.
So now you stirred for 1 hour.
So the BD500 is sprayed in a droplet, and when I spray out it's a gentle wrist action. The reason we needed to get together early this morning is I wanted to show you how to apply BD501, which is also known as horn silica. Horn silica is made out of quartz crystals. The quartz is pounded until it's the size of small stones, put into a mortar and pestle and ground until it's turned into little crystals, and then placed between 2 sheets of glass where it's ground until it's as fine as talcum powder. We then mix it with a small amount of rainwater to make a paste, pour it into a cow horn and bury it for the months of summer. This is when the earth energy is rising into the atmosphere and the light energy, the silica processes of the earth are the most strongest. We're going to make our 501. Exactly the opposite to the 500 horn manure preparation that was buried during the winter months. The 501 horn silica preparation is made during the summer months. Once the summer's finished, we take it out of the horn and we store it in a glass container on a very sunny windowsill where it can store for as long as you need until you're ready to apply it. So BD501, the horn silica, is stirred for an hour just like we used for the horn manure preparation. Once it's stirred for the hour, we'd use a little spray unit like this. This spray unit has been purchased as a new unit and never used for chemicals or any other applications. And I'm going to put it as a fine mist into the atmosphere and just let it drift onto the plant with the sun at my back.
And how much would that cover?
It's enough to cover about 5 acres. Just in that small glass jar. Very powerful spray.
Okay, and how do you apply it?
The ideal is to put 3 applications out per season. So the first application on any plant is at the 4-leaf stage, when the first true leaves of that plant form. Applied early in the morning, the benefits of that spray is it will enhance the growth and yields on the plant. Then we wait through the season until the first fruits, after flowering, when the first fruits form, when they're about walnut size. Another application of BD501, the horn silica, early in the morning will enhance the nutritional qualities of your produce. And then waiting, the third application would be 2 weeks before harvest. This application is applied in the afternoon, condensing the silica into the produce of the plant. When we apply silica in the afternoon, it enhances the ripening and keeping qualities of your produce. So ideally, in a good season, we try and get out this horn silica preparation, we try and apply it 3 times. BD501 is used after BD500 the horn manure has been used 3 times. We want 3 applications of 500. We need to put everything down into the earth first before drawing it out into the atmosphere. So we've only put out BD500 once so far on the garden. So this spring, when it gets a little bit warmer on the soil, we'll put out another application of BD500, and then the third application can go out this autumn. So next year you'd be ready to use the 501 spray. morning. We've gathered together again this morning because I wanted to teach you about using Equisetum arvens, which is BD508. BD508 is used in biodynamics to prevent fungal diseases, and it's applied early in the morning. In biodynamics, we don't have anything known as a fungicide. We can only prevent fungal diseases from occurring. So can you think of the kinds of landscape issues that cause fungal diseases to occur, and weather conditions and environmental conditions where fungal diseases would start to be a problem on your plants?
Sort of warm, stagnant, moist air.
Yeah, or if you plant too close to each other. Yeah.
Plants not spaced properly with enough airflow. Yeah.
Exactly.
Anything else?
Too much water or bad drainage of the soil.
And what about the kinds of plants that we're using, the varieties that we select?
You can choose resistant varieties. That's what we do in organic practice here. We choose a plant that's resistant to a certain disease, so it has a better chance of not getting it in the first place.
Yeah. So all of this is very important. All of these management issues are very important for preventing fungal diseases. But have you ever noticed that there's years when fungal diseases are more prevalent than other years?
Sometimes, yeah.
We find that the time they're most likely to occur was when we get a perigee moon. The planets and the moon orbit the sun in what's called an elliptical orbit, not a circular orbit. And an ellipse is an oval shape.
It's when it's nearest to the Earth, isn't it?
Yeah. Well done, Bill. Yeah. Perigee, peri close, G Earth, close to the Earth. And that the 2 weeks later, it runs as far away as it will in its orbit, called apogee moon, away from Earth. So over the 2 week period, you have the moon cycling very close to the Earth and then flowing away, and that's an elliptical orbit, apogee and perigee moon. In biodynamics, we prevent fungal diseases from occurring by first the management way that we manage the site, and also watching for times of excess moon force, which is around the perigee moon. So what we'll do is we make a herbal tea out of the plant called Equisetum arvens.
Oh, the oldest plant of the world.
Yeah. And it's got common name. Do you know its common names?
It's horsetail or mare's tail, is it?
Yeah. See, the plant itself lacks foliage. It's very much like a skeleton. And so what we do is we take 20 grams of the herb. So I've crushed it up. 20 grams of the dried herb. Put in 1 litre of really good quality water. Put it onto a stove using wood or gas heating. Bring it to the boil and then let it simmer for 20 minutes. After that, remove the pot from the heat and sit it for 24 hours. So it's just like making herbal tea. After 24 hours, you can strain it and put it into a bottle and leave it in the fridge until you're ready to use it. And with the use of Equisetum, which we call BD508, it's very important to have it ready when you need it. When conditions for fungal diseases are likely to occur, you need this preparation ready to use, and use it very early the very next morning.
So how long does this keep for, a bottle like that?
You keep that for a month in the fridge.
Okay.
The plant is very powerful at holding back excess lunar forces because it's nearly all silica.
Okay.
So it's very high in silica. Because of that, it gives the plant a very strong cell wall. So we've got the Equisetum already made up. I'll pour it into the bucket. So we stir the BD508 in tepid water. I'm going to stir this for 20 minutes using the vortex chaos rhythm which we've used before for our biodynamic preparations. And this is enough Equisetum to cover about 1/4 acre.
Spread it over the top. How much am I putting on?
Put enough on to wash the whole plant.
To make everything wet?
Yeah. I like to see it form droplets on the leaves before I move. So it starts to drip off the leaves. That's it. So you're really washing the plant with Equisetum. And then once you've done all the leaves, come under here and also apply it to the soil.
What about the stems?
Yep, do them as well. So when you wash it down, really wash it. It's not a light spray, it's actually a real wash of the plant. Right down under all the plant, around all the soil. Yep. We've gathered 5 buckets of cow manure. and we're going to mix it for an hour. When we're mixing it, I'm going to add 100 grams of eggshells that have been finely crushed. And eggshells are calcium, and calcium controls your pH of your soil. Calcium carbonate is lime. And by putting eggshells into the cow manure, we're enabling the soil to find its right balance between the acid and alkaline balance. And we're also going to add to that 500 grams of rock basalt, which is just finely crushed rock.
Where would you get that from?
Any quarry. So what we've got here is the cow manure, which is always good for biological action within the soil. Basalt rock dust, 500 grams, and that mineralises and holds the mineral content in your soil. And the eggshells for pH. These three ingredients need to be mixed together for an hour. You can imagine that after the hour, this manure is thoroughly aerated. And if we have a deep breath now, and compare it to a deep breath in an hour's time, you'll find that it changes its smell, and it's much sweeter smelling at the end of the hour. It loses its odour. A fun thing to do on an afternoon.
What are we doing now then?
We're going to bury the barrel, but I've cut out the bottom, and it's just like the compost, it needs soil contact. But we're going to only bury the barrel halfway up, set the barrel about halfway up into the soil and leave the other half outside the soil.
Why'd you do that?
So that it's like a raised bed. Yeah, it raises the barrel and draws life to the barrel because it's acting like a raised garden bed. Always works better when it's a little bit above the soil level. So we just get this out to halfway. Yep, that's pretty good. So now this has been mixed for an hour, we can put it into the barrel that we've prepared. The way to do that is we'll put a third of the manure in, one set of compost preps, another third of manure, the second set of preparations, the last of the manure, set of preparations, and then cover it in hessian sacks. And that's the cowpat pit organised for the next 3 months. Okay, it's about right. And if you spread it out, Bill, so it's flat on the bottom. Now, the thing to watch with these preparations is that each preparation goes in the same place each time. The 502, 503, 504, 505 and 506. And the valerian is the liquid. So take the first row, 502. So just remember where you started. 3 is the chamomile, 4 is the stinging nettle, 5 oak bark, dandelion in the middle, and we'll push them down into the manure. And then a little bit of valerian over the top. Okay, and we go again, Bill. Another third of manure, and just following that pattern with the preps. Okay, and again, same place. Do you want to do some valerian? Just sprinkle some over the top. Yeah, we might just push them down into the manure. A little bit more. Okay, and now the last third of manure. This time, same place, but really push the preparations down and we'll really bury it. Yeah, not too far. That's it. Just really covering them up. Last one in the middle, and the valerian. Pour the rest of the valerian into this bucket. So we'll soak the sacks in it so they're damp, and we'll put it over the top. And in a month's time you get a garden fork and just aerate the manure so you've got oxygen flow, and then leave it to sit for about another 2 months, 2 to 3 months, and you'll be able to tell when it's ready because it'll resemble good compost. And we worked out this would be enough for 120 acres. Okay, now we need a cover so that the rain doesn't get in. Just put it over one end and lift the other. Perfect. Set it for a month, aerate it, and then 3 to 4 months' time it'll be ready.
Alright then, see what it's like. Yeah.
Gosh, there's some white mould there, isn't there?
It's just on the surface, only a thin layer of mould. It looks fairly good consistency. It's not too wet, not too dry really. It doesn't really smell any better either. Is it heavy?
A little bit, yeah.
Oh, it's the consistency of a really dodgy Christmas pudding, isn't it?
Yummy.
I can't see any sign of the preparations anymore. It looks like they've disappeared, doesn't it?
Looks like
They're
it.
locked down.
Okay, should we put the hessian back on then?
Yes, please. Yeah.
What we've got here is the manure concentrate. We made this here on site. This is what it's like when it's ready.
Wow, it's really different.
So have a look at it.
Wow!
It doesn't smell at all. Yeah, it feels really smooth.
And the texture, it's amazing.
It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah. Doesn't even smell.
It doesn't smell.
Looks like a good muffin or something.
And if you could put that in the water, and when you're doing so, dissipate it into the water and just rub it in. This is a fantastic preparation for applying after green manure crops, or like in the situation on a newly formed bed. And generally, whenever you've got organic matter and you're trying to transform that into humus, this is a fantastic preparation for using at that time.
Do you need to have a special day to spray or flick the preparation in the garden?
The descending lunar moon in the afternoon, so that the energy of the earth has been drawn downwards into the earth and it's held more fully in the soil.
Could I stir it? Yeah?
Yeah, so for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
A bit faster, so that's it. So when we flick it on the soil, we apply it at a heavier application rate. Quite a lot going on this area here. The moon, she takes 27.3 days to move in front of each of the 12 constellations of the zodiac to get back to the starting point, and then it repeats its pattern. So if she's moving in front of a earth sign, that's a large sign, it will take her longer, more days to move in front of a sign that's say 46 degrees than in front of a sign that's only 18 degrees. So the length of time the moon's in front of each of the constellations will vary according to the size of the constellation. This is called the sidereal lunar month. 27.3 days for the moon to move all the way through each of the constellations in the zodiac and get back to the point at which she started. This is the basis of the biodynamic planting calendar, and both information can be found on both calendars. To have a sense for the ascending and descending lunar rhythm, the very best thing to do for learning it is to go and have a look. So if I was looking for the moon and the night sky, sometimes do you find she tracks quite a high path from east to west, and sometimes she's right up in the sky, running very high. Other nights when we see the moon, she's running quite low on the horizon, and she might be tracking a path that's down here more towards the south. The sun does this in 12 months, from peak north in summer, through the equinox in September and March, running peak south in winter, again to the equinox, up to peak north in summer. This is for the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, this movement is reversed. So the sun's doing it, but the sun's taking a whole year to do it. The moon's only taking 27.2 days to complete exactly the same cycle. The best way to learn ascending and descending lunar rhythm is to watch every night the point on the horizon where the moon is rising. And watch her. Every night she's going to be rising slightly further south, and then after 13.5 days she's going to be rising slightly further north every day until she's running a high arc. When the moon's at its highest point in the sky, so at peak north, for 13.5 days, every day she's going to be rising slightly to the south until she's rising the lowest. This period of time from the highest point in the sky until the lowest point is called a descending lunar rhythm. Descending down into the earth. Energy, so the energy of the moon is drawing, the influence of the moon is drawing energy down into the earth during that 13.5 day period. For the next 13.5 days, she's going to go from the peak south position to her peak north position. So she's going to go from running a low arc in the horizon to running a very high arc. This period of 13.5 days is called an ascending lunar rhythm. So with biodynamic practice, when the moon's moving from her peak highest position north to the lowest position south, this is known as a descending lunar rhythm. We're going to do practices that involve going down into the earth. Put out our biodynamic preparation BD 500, put it out in a descending lunar rhythm, and we get that energy drawn, we get the influence of the preparation held within the earth for that whole period of time. Other practices that we use for the descending lunar rhythm is to apply compost at that time, to maybe dig in a green manure crop. Anything to do with the earth, wanting to draw down into the earth, these are the practices that would be undertaken during a descending lunar rhythm. The ascending lunar rhythm, when the moon's moving higher into the sky and drawing energy out of the earth, BD 501. BD 501 is a preparation that works outward with the plant's growth. We've got a triangle around a leaf sign. We've moved into a fruit seeding time. Then we've got a triangle around a leaf sign again, coming into fruit seeding and then into an earth sign. So I want to look at these triangles. This triangle's got an asterisk next to it, and this triangle's got a dot next to it. These are called planetary trines. The glyph for the trine is a triangle. We've got one here on the 10th, one here on the 21st, again on the 26th. But if I have a look down here and see this triangle, and it's around a leaf sign, it's got an asterisk next to it, what it means is that there's two planets in their orbit which are sitting at exactly 120 degrees apart from each other. So if you take 360 degrees and cut it up into 120 degrees, you get the 360 degree circle, but the 120 degrees is the triangular effect. It's called a trine. This is a very powerful influence on Earth, and it's stronger than the moon's influence. Maria Thun found that when she planted at times of planetary trines, she often didn't know what the result would be. She couldn't identify what it would be. What she then discovered was if the planets were in the same element as the moon, it was a very powerful effect. But if the planets were in a different element than the moon, it was a very chaotic effect. There was no regular pattern. If we have a look back up here, we identified that those two planets were both sitting in front of water signs. So we've got trined planets in a water sign. So a water sign will give us what development on the plant? Leaf. But the moon is in Gemini, or the twins. It's an air sign, flower development. So we've got the planets trining in a water sign, but the moon in an air sign. And they're cancelling each other out, and it's quite a mixed time of mixed influence. We see Saturn and the Sun trining, both in water signs, and the moon was in a water sign until 20 to 10 in the morning. So the trine has an asterisk next to it telling you that both planets and the moon were in the same element. It's a very powerful effect. Another lunar rhythm that's represented on the calendar is called the nodes. We have planetary nodes and we have lunar nodes. A node is when a planet, or the moon, crosses the ecliptic, the path of the sun. The moon will cross the path of the sun twice every month. If she's running above the path of the sun, it's called an ascending node, and you get this little glyph. But when the moon runs down below the path of the sun, you get a descending node. Node days are points of chaos. We avoid planting on those days because we don't know what effect the moon will have when she's crossing the point of the sun. It's a mixed influence coming to Earth. Very common lunar influence that we're all quite aware of, it's the full moon to last quarter, new moon, first quarter. This is known as the waxing and waning rhythm of the moon. Full moon waning to new moon waxing to full moon. And looking at sap flow, enhanced sap flow in plants, increased seed germination. You get a much quicker germination if you plant your seeds near the full moon. But at the same time, that plant could be more susceptible to fungal diseases because there's more water element, there's more active water element at that time. The last lunar rhythm that I want to show you on this calendar is what's called apogee and perigee. The apogee-perigee lunar rhythm is a 27.55 day cycle. This orbit of the moon around the Earth is not a circular orbit, it's an elliptical orbit, which means that it's different distances. Sometimes the moon moves away from the Earth and then comes back and moves quite close to the Earth. If we measure these distant distances, we can see quite a variation in the distance of the moon and its relationship to Earth. This is apogee moon. The moon apogee meaning away from the Earth. It's 406,326 kilometres distance between the moon and the Earth. This is the furthest point away she goes in her orbit. Now, for the next 13.5 days, she's coming close to Earth until she gets to the point, the moment in time when she's the closest she will be for that month, and this is perigee. Perigee meaning close, G Earth, close to the Earth. 357,137 kilometres. There's an average of 40,000 kilometres difference between apogee moon and perigee moon. The moon's very powerful when she's at perigee, and she's not as strong when it's at apogee. We found that in spring, if you get a full moon and a perigee moon coming close together, you're more likely to have fungal diseases at that moment and at that month than if the lunar cycles are further apart. The moon's very powerful at perigee, so you imagine perigee moon and full moon occurring simultaneously. Those years are years that you'd be watching fungal diseases. This gives us a picture of the kinds of influences that are happening for the day, and it's good when you read the Biodynamic Planting Calendar to see how they're all lining up. Where is perigee moon? Is it near a full moon? Is the energy being drawn out of the Earth, or is it being drawn into the Earth? And use different practices for different days according to the calendar. You should never become dogmatic in the use of the calendar. It's a secondary tool. But if you've got 4 days of rain and then you have a clear day and it's a good planting day, then it was advisable to plant. You know, don't say, I can't do any planting because it's not, the calendar says it's not the right day. It's a wonderful tool. You'll get far better results for planting in those times than if you completely disregard this information at all.
I think the preparations was a lot more in-depth than I ever imagined, particularly stirring things for an hour and the rainwater being tepid, and all those little elements, like the cow manure being from a lactating biodynamic cow. It's so much detail into it that I just didn't really think about until we started.
I really enjoy its respect for the soil and its respect for the environment and respect for plants. I really like that.
I'm really interested in the planting by the moon. I can see that's quite logical and that works.
It's really important to improve the soil, and I think it's a good way to do it, and compared to conventional agriculture, it just doesn't harm, it just enhances the nature and the soil.
I've really enjoyed the process of learning about it.
My aim would be to see biodynamic practice used widely in every country of the world.